My fiancé proposes to me while planning to meet up with his ex while I'm away for work, but it's best to cancel the date if you don't want to end up with broken legs. Last weekend, I found out that my 33-year-old fiancé, Luke, who I'd been with for 3 years, and who had just proposed to me 10 days ago, had been hiding things I wish I'd known before I'd accepted his proposal. Luke and I met at a mutual friend's barbecue. Over the past 3 years, things have developed naturally. I work as a consultant, which requires me to travel out of state frequently, usually 2 or 3 days a week. Despite this, our relationship remained strong. Last year, I bought a condo that I had been renting out to tourists for up to a month to help pay the mortgage, but I spent most nights at Luke's house when I wasn't traveling. Luke proposed to me last Friday after I helped him fix a plumbing emergency at his house. He was home when his water heater exploded, flooding part of his basement. I managed to turn off the main water valve, moved his important documents and electronics to a safe place, and called a plumber who fixed the problem before Luke returned from his work conference. When he arrived and saw how I had handled everything, he hugged me for what seemed like an eternity. 2 days later, before going to his friend Carter's housewarming party, Luke got down on one knee and proposed to me. He said he knew from the beginning that I was special, but seeing how I took care of his house, he realized he wanted to make our relationship permanent. I was excited and said yes right away. Carter has been Luke's best friend since college. He is a successful person and frequently organizes gatherings for his group of friends. I never got along particularly well with Carter. When Luke first introduced me to him, Carter flirted with me a lot. I found it inappropriate and firmly told him I was with Luke. When I mentioned this incident to Luke later, he laughed and said that was how Carter was with everyone. Luke seemed to appreciate that I had set limits. Although Carter has a reputation among his friends for being a womanizer, even with his friends' partners, he makes comments about their appearance that cross boundaries, but gets away with it because he is generous with his success. Throwing extravagant parties, lending expensive items, and paying bills. I've overheard a lot of conversations at Luke's about Carter's flirting and conquests, though he respected my boundaries after our first meeting. 2 days after the proposal, while I was still floating on cloud 9, Carter called me out of the blue. He insisted that we needed to talk in person. Carter showed me text messages between him and Luke from 3 years ago, right around the time Luke and I started dating. In those messages, Luke told Carter that he had settled with me after a woman named Jessica, whom he described as truly beautiful and with whom he had had several encounters, started dating someone else. Luke referred to Jessica as the one and described me as not Jessica, but passable and wife material because I seemed interested in him. The conversation continued with Luke and Carter discussing how much more attractive Jessica had been for months. They even made fun of me for saying something to Carter on our first meeting. They seemed to find it amusing with Carter saying that at least it was a sign that she wouldn't cheat on him, while Luke added that she seemed a little intense. Luke also commented on my surprisingly high sex drive while receiving congratulatory messages from Carter. Luke made a vulgar comment about how he must have been with a lot of guys and that he didn't generally like experienced women, but that the sex made it worth it. These degrading exchanges continued for about 6 months, ending approximately 2.5 years ago. After that, his messages became more general updates about our relationship with Carter, occasionally joking about how dominated Luke was. Carter then showed me a very recent text message exchange, right after our engagement. Luke had excitedly sent Carter a message saying that Jessica was single again and seemed interested in reconnecting. He included screenshots of their Facebook conversation. Jessica had messaged Luke after he commented on her change of relationship status the week before. When she asked him what was new in his life, he didn't mention our engagement at all. In their conversation, Jessica told Luke that she should have chosen him back then. Luke replied that he was devastated when she chose someone else and thought they had something special. Again, he didn't mention me or our engagement. Luke sent those screenshots to Carter asking, "What do you think?" Carter responded enthusiastically, "I definitely think you have a real chance without acknowledging my existence." Luke replied, "I know, right?" And he said no more. After seeing all this, I asked Carter to leave. When I got home, I checked Luke's Facebook, guessing his password was the same as his email, and discovered that Luke and Jessica had planned to meet up the following week when I was away for work. Jessica mentioned that she might fly out to visit friends and was considering moving again after her breakup. Luca encouraged the idea by telling her he would be happy to help her with whatever she needed, without ever mentioning our engagement. I was stunned to realize I had never heard Jessica's name before. Looking back at their message history, I saw that they hadn't communicated at all between their first messages 3 years ago and these recent exchanges. I spent the next few days in my condo making excuses about work and avoiding Luke. I felt completely numb. I called Carter back to question him about why he had shown me those messages, given that he had never seemed to like me, and now he was betraying his best friend. He said I was doing the right thing, suggesting that Luke should be with Jessica, since he was obviously still interested in her, and that I deserved better. He asked me if I wasn't grateful that he'd told me before the wedding, adding that I'd better hear it from him since we didn't get along anyway. I made plans to collect my belongings from his house under the pretext of organizing for the new year. I also didn't completely trust Carter's motives. Why was he so interested in reuniting Luke with Jessica? Why risk his friendship with Luke and potentially alienate his entire friend group? Before leaving for my work trip, I sent Jessica a Facebook message informing her that Luke had just proposed to me, leaving the rest up to her. She didn't reply. She didn't even see the message. Initially, Carter kept texting and calling me, asking when I was going to break up with Luke. Growing more suspicious of his persistence, I told him I was still thinking and would figure things out. During my trip, he called me again, suddenly claiming that his entire group of friends, including Luke, were freeloaders and parasites, and that Luke was no exception. He was just using me. I told him I refused to become collateral damage in any problems he had with his friends, especially since he had enabled their behavior for years by letting them take advantage of his generosity. I ignored his calls. After that, I decided to let the planned meeting between Luke and Jessica happen, and then return early from my trip without telling Luke, with the intention of breaking up with him. Then, on the Friday of their scheduled meeting, I received a call from Jessica. She explained that she had come to town, met up with mutual friends, and found out through them that Luke was engaged. She had gotten my number from these friends and called to warn me that my fiancé was trying to meet her behind my back. I told Jessica I already knew and asked her to check the Facebook message I had sent her earlier. After reading it, she thanked me for telling her, and I thanked her for contacting me. She mentioned that her previous relationship had also ended due to infidelity, which is why she was particularly angry with her ex. We ended up talking for almost an hour. I admitted I could see why Luke had been attracted to her. She seemed both pretty and kind, based on her photos and our conversation. Jessica said Luke was a fool for risking his relationship with me, adding that his only good qualities seemed to be his good taste in women. I suggested to Jessica that she not cancel her meeting with Luke, since I was planning to return early anyway. Instead, I suggested I surprise him with it. Jessica loved the idea, fueled in part by her anger at her own ex and Luke's dishonesty. She agreed to meet me at the airport when I arrived for my flight. A few hours before I was due to board, Luke texted me saying he missed me and asking if I could cut my trip short because he needed to talk to me. Shortly after, Jessica called me. Luca had canceled their meeting. He had sent her a message saying he was very attracted to her, but that he was engaged, that he had done something wrong and that they shouldn't see each other. He apologized for making her come all the way there. Jessica was upset, as she hadn't traveled specifically to see him, but rather for her originally planned trip. The way Luke phrased his cancellation made it sound like he couldn't trust himself to control his attraction if they met. Not wanting to see Luke after all this, I told Jessica I owed her dinner as a thank you for his honesty. I returned home. I met Jessica at a restaurant and we both had too many drinks. I texted Luke telling him I was back in town. Jessica returned to my condo where a friend joined us, Olivia. While we were watching TV, Luca showed up unannounced with Flores. Olivia and Jessica opened the door. According to Olivia, Luke was surprised to see Jessica there and asked what was going on. Jessica, extremely intoxicated, told Luke that she was now living there and that she and I were talking about getting married. This strange statement arose from our drunken conversation, where we joked that life would be easier if we just married each other because men are unreliable. Olivia, who had joined our drinking session, contributed to the chaos. Olivia yelled to me from the doorway that the suspicious Luke was there. I yelled from the bathroom that I didn't want to see him. They slammed the door in his face. Luke kept playing, calling, and texting, but I was too drunk to notice any of it. At some point during the night, while I was showing Olivia the messages between Luck and Carter, Jessica and I drunkenly updated our Facebook statuses to show that we were engaged to each other. I hardly remember doing this. The next morning, I woke up to numerous confusing messages, feeling hungover and feeling embarrassed. I untagged Jessica, told everyone my account had been hacked, and stopped answering most questions. Carter called me sounding amused by my Facebook status. Still not thinking clearly, I told her Jessica thought I was attractive and hung up. Later, I texted Luke telling him not to contact me for 2 days while I sorted things out. Jessica left after spending some time with her other friends and returned to her hometown. Before leaving, she blocked Luke on all platforms, but not before posting an update tagging him. Those were my crazy days of going from being engaged to ending both relationships almost at the same time. Well, the second one wasn't real, but it counts too. Update 1. It had been 3 days since the drunken Facebook fiasco, and I finally met up with Luke to talk. I gave her engagement ring back immediately. Luke insisted that he had acknowledged his mistake and that he would never have actually cheated on me. He claimed that canceling the meeting with Jessica proved his commitment to our relationship. I pointed out that early in our relationship, he had told Carter I was nothing more than a consolation prize, discussing me as if I were an object. At first, he denied it, but when I mentioned that Carter had shown me the real messages, his expression changed. Luke later told me that Carter had had a huge fight with his entire group of friends over a debt they supposedly owed him. He claimed that Carter was showing me those messages as revenge against all of them. I replied that even if that were true, Carter never forced him to speak so disrespectfully about me, or by arranging a meeting with Jessica behind my back. Luca claimed he had matured since those initial text exchanges, and now truly valued me. He emphasized that he had canceled the meeting with Jessica, asking if that didn't count for something, and said that he had asked me to come back early because he wanted to tell me the situation personally. I told Luke I refused to settle for someone like him, that his behavior was deplorable, especially planning to meet Jessica knowing I would be away, and that I could never trust him again, much less marry him. I asked for space and time, pointing out that his insistence only pushed me further away. The week after our conversation, I collected all my belongings from Luke's house while he was at work. I left my key on the kitchen table with a note saying I needed more time. Luke has continued to send messages every day, flowers and small gifts to my office. I've responded with brief, non-committal messages, saying, I'm still processing everything. Jessica and I have continued talking on WhatsApp. She is firmly on the side of leave it and don't look back. While she admits that Luke can be persuasive, we've both acknowledged that there's no real way to determine Luke's true intentions after what happened. I learned from mutual acquaintances that Carter did indeed have a huge fight with his entire group of friends over money they had borrowed from him over the years and never repaid. He apparently cut ties with all of them and has been vocal about his disdain for the entire group. This confirmed part of Luke's story about Carter's motives, but it still doesn't excuse Luke's actions. 3 days ago, Carter texted me asking if I wanted to grab coffee sometime, which might explain a lot. I haven't responded. My friend Olivia has been supportive, but she keeps reminding me that she never liked Luke. According to her, he always looked at other women when we were out together, although I never noticed this. She claims that he once flirted with her when I was out of town, although she can't remember exactly when this happened. I don't know what to make of these new accusations, whether they are real observations or if Olivia is trying to make my decision easier. Work has been a welcome distraction. My boss has assigned me an important new account that requires extensive travel in the coming months. The timing couldn't be better, as it gives me legitimate reasons to be out of town and away from the drama surrounding my personal life. Last weekend, I ran into one of Luke's friends at the supermarket. He mentioned that Luke was going through a rough time and asked if we were working things out. I kept my answer vague, saying we were taking some time apart. He seemed surprised and mentioned that Luke had told everyone we were together, but took it in stride after a minor disagreement. This revelation that Luke was essentially lying to his friends about our relationship upset me more than I expected. Luke has started leaving voicemails asking if we could at least attend couples therapy. In his last message, he mentioned that everyone deserves forgiveness and the opportunity to grow from mistakes. I've been spending more time in my condo, claiming it as my own space, rather than just a place to stay, when I wasn't at Luke's house. I repainted my bedroom and bought new bedding, small changes that somehow help me feel like I'm moving forward. Jessica mentioned that she is more seriously considering the job opportunity in my city. We've joked about being roommates and her moving in, though we both recognize that our friendship is still new and largely based on our shared experience with Luke. As for me, I'm still confused about everything. There's so much drama surrounding the situation that sometimes I just want to get away from it all. Luke Carter, including his new friendship with Jessica. I've been focusing on work, exercising regularly, and reconnecting with friends I'd somewhat neglected during my relationship with Luke. For now, that seems like the healthiest approach while I try to figure out what I really want. Update 2. 2 weeks ago, I finally decided to end things with Luke permanently. After weeks of reflection and conversations with close friends and family, I realized I could never fully trust him again. The foundation of our relationship had been built on him settling for me after being rejected by Jessica, and his recent actions showed that he was still clinging to that what-if scenario with her. When I met with Luke to give him my decision, he didn't take it well. He accused me of wasting 3 years for something that wasn't even a mistake, because in the end, nothing happened. The conversation quickly deteriorated when he suggested that Carter had manipulated me, and that Jessica and I had some kind of relationship beyond friendship. When I stood firm in my decision, he changed tactics, becoming emotional and begging for another chance. It was enough to confirm to me that the decision was the right one. The next day, Luca showed up at my work with Flores, creating an awkward scene in front of my coworkers. My boss, who was aware of the situation, had security escort him out and suggested I consider a restraining order if his behavior continued. Fortunately, after a firm message telling him his actions were inappropriate and potentially harassing, Luke walked away. Now, Carter, remember how he texted me asking if I wanted to grab coffee? I finally accepted. More out of curiosity about his true intentions for exposing Luke, we met at a public coffee shop, and what he revealed shocked me. Carter explained that his fight with his group of friends wasn't just about money. She recently discovered that Luke had been sleeping with Carter's ex-girlfriend while they were still together 2 years ago. He only found out when she contacted him after moving back to the city, wanting to clear her conscience. According to Carter, this betrayal made him reevaluate his entire circle of friends, realizing that they had all taken advantage of his generosity for years. He showed me text exchanges between Luke and other friends where they joked about using Carter for his money and connections. In one of the most disturbing messages, Luke bragged about his affair with Carter's ex, calling it revenge for Carter's flirtatious behavior with me early in our relationship. This revelation painted Luke's character even worse and explained why Carter had been so keen to expose Luke's messages about Jessica and me. When I asked Carter why he'd always acted so flirtatious with his friends' dates, including me at first, he admitted it was a misguided attempt to fit a gamer image that he thought would earn him respect. He acknowledged that it was inappropriate and said that he had been working on changing this behavior for the past year, which is why he had been more distant from the group even before discovering Luke's betrayal, that he wasn't even like that, since he had always had stable partners and had never had one-night stands. I still don't fully trust Carter, but his explanation made me understand his actions. He apologized for his past behavior toward me and for not revealing Luke's true character sooner. While I appreciate the apology, I have kept our interaction strictly to that one meeting. I have no interest in developing a friendship or anything more with him, given his complicated history and connection to this whole mess. As for Jessica, we've remained in touch, albeit less frequently, as we both move forward with our lives. She decided not to accept the job in my city, accepting a better offer elsewhere. Before making her decision, Luke apparently approached her again, telling her from a friend's cell phone that I was unstable and that we had broken up because of my issues, not his actions. Jessica saw this immediately and sent me screenshots of her messages, more confirmations of what I already know I did right. By a strange coincidence, a close college friend, Diane, moved to my city for work last month. He needed a place to stay while he looked for an apartment, so he's currently renting out the guest room in my condo. That solves two things: helps with the mortgage payment and helps me not live alone. We've reconnected in a way that reminds me of who I was before Luke. More confident, more outgoing, less willing to compromise on things that really matter. One last update I feel is important to share. I ran into Luke's sister last week at a local coffee shop. She approached cautiously, clearly unsure of my reaction. She told me that she had heard several versions of what happened between Luke and me from different people, including Luke himself. She told me that I shouldn't feel bad because the relationship ended. Luke was into doing these things and having his options open with other girls. She apologized for not warning me sooner, saying she had hoped he had changed. I've been hit with a barrage of information lately that doesn't reflect well on Luke, so I'm grateful it all came out so quickly before I was more committed or even married to that person. Update 3. Many of you have continued to send me messages of support, and I appreciate them. But luckily, I'm not sad. It's not a relationship I miss at all. Luke finally stopped contacting me about 2 months ago after I sent him a formal cease and desist letter through a lawyer friend. His persistence had become worrying, with messages alternating between apologies, accusations, and attempts to make me jealous by mentioning other women he was supposedly dating. The legal warning seems to have worked, as I haven't heard from him since. I ran into him once at a restaurant about 3 weeks ago. I was with a woman I didn't recognize. When he saw me, he was overly affectionate with his date while observing my reaction. I just nodded politely and went back to my conversation with my friends. I found his attempt to provoke a response pathetic rather than hurtful, which shows how far I've come emotionally. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Luca has been telling a completely fictional version of our breakup. In his story, I cheated on him with Jessica when I found out she was an old girlfriend, and I was jealous of her, and he magnanimously forgave me before I finally left him for Carter. The absurd nature of this story would be funny if it weren't so malicious, but no one is believing it because it's a story that makes no sense. But if he wants to keep wasting his breath on that, that's not my problem. Carter reached out again a month ago, inviting me to a small gathering at his house. Although I have no negative thoughts about him, I have no desire to maintain any connection with that chapter of my life. He responded respectfully, saying he understood and wishing me the best. The group of friends that used to surround Lukey Carter has apparently completely fragmented. According to my friend Olivia, who still maintains some ties, revelations about Luke's affair with Carter's ex-girlfriend spread throughout their social circle, causing divisions as people took sides. Several of Luke's former friends have contacted me to apologize for not saying something sooner about his character and behavior patterns. I have accepted these apologies, but have kept these interactions brief. Jessica and I continue to exchange occasional messages. She is thriving in her new position and recently started dating someone who, in her words, sets a much higher standard than the mistake we shared. And before you say that with Jessica, I am maintaining a connection to my past, while with Carter, I am not. Let me tell you something. It's different. It's not an extremely close relationship, just a text once a month to catch up because we've gotten along well. My relationship with Carter until all this happened was almost non-existent. I know you're going to think I'm romantically interested in Jessica because of the Facebook joke. I've read comments like this before, but you can think whatever you want. My condo is now completely my own space. Again, Diane found her own apartment after staying with me for 2 months, but we continued to see each other regularly for dinner or activities on the weekends. The work continues to go well. Extensive travel has helped me rediscover my independence and confidence. My boss recently mentioned the possibility of a promotion that would involve moving to our company headquarters in Chicago. A year ago, I would have immediately turned down the opportunity because of my relationship with Luke. I am now seriously considering it, based solely on what is best for my career and personal growth. Also, I find the city interesting. For those who have asked if I am dating again, the answer is no. I'm still enjoying rediscovering who I am outside of a relationship and focusing on friendships, career, and personal interests. Update 4. Before I get into the update, I'll give a quick update on my life. I have moved to Chicago. I'm renting here because I don't know how permanent it will be, but I'm using the money from my rented condo. This one is being rented to a couple because I don't have time to rent it to tourists like I used to. As for Jessica, she's still in a relationship, but someone played a nasty joke on Luke saying she'd broken up, which he couldn't check because he was blocked, and he thought it would be a nice gesture to fly to her city to surprise her at work. Jessica's boyfriend didn't think it was a great gesture of love, or if he did, he made it known by threatening to never come back or he'd break her legs. Jessica didn't tell me about that side of her boyfriend, which, while aggressive, seems helpful to people like Luke. Carter has sued the group of friends to repay the money he's lent them over the years, including Luke, and almost everyone has had to pay, including Luke himself. I know because he called me again to invite me on a formal date. He told me he knew I said no, but he thought maybe I'd changed my mind. I told him that I hadn't changed my mind and that I still thought the same. Also, I wasn't living in the city. He told me that wouldn't be a problem for him, that he could travel often, but I told him that my answer was still no. I know it seems pushy, but he's always been a gentleman when I asked him, even though that wasn't how I thought he was. It's been a little weird. I still haven't dated anyone, even in my new city. Maybe it is already now. New city, new life, new social circle, and new partner. I hope there are new Reddit posts too, because I'm tired of talking about Luke. I send a big greeting and thanks to everyone if that is the case.